The airport was a symphony of controlled chaos, the hum of conversation, the glide of suitcases over polished floors, and the distant echo of boarding calls created a current that pulled everyone forward. Amid this sea of travelers, Zara Bennett was an island of calm. She stood clutching her first-class boarding pass, her quiet confidence a stark contrast to the surrounding haste. For Zara, this flight was more than a journey. It was a celebration. After years of hard work, culminating in a prestigious scholarship, she was finally going home. Dressed in an outfit of effortless style, she made her way to the exclusive first-class lounge. It was a sanctuary of plush leather chairs and ambient lighting, where the soft notes of jazz music mingled with the clink of coffee cups. Zara settled into a cozy armchair, her excitement for the reunion with her father, Victor Bennett, bubbling just beneath her composed exterior. She hadn't seen him in 2 years. This trip was a return to a life she deeply missed. A message from her father lit up her phone screen. "About to board? Let me know when you're settled." She smiled and typed back. "Almost there. I'll text once I'm on the plane." Victor Bennett was not just a proud father. He was the owner of the very airline she was flying. It was a fact known to few. He had built his empire on a foundation of humility, a value he had instilled in his daughter. Zara had grown up watching him treat every employee, from the cleaning crew to the board executives, with the same unwavering respect. She preferred the anonymity. It allowed her to be seen for who she was, not who her father was. Across the lounge, Claudia Harper, a lead flight attendant with sharp features and an even sharper gaze, watched Zara. She exchanged a smirk with a colleague. "First class is getting a little too accessible," Claudia muttered, her voice laced with a casual superiority. When the boarding announcement came, Zara joined the priority line. At the gate, Claudia greeted each passenger with a practiced smile. "Welcome aboard," she said warmly to a man in a tailored suit. But when Zara stepped forward, Claudia's warmth evaporated. She glanced at the boarding pass, her eyes narrowing for a fraction of a second. The ticket clearly read first class. "Oh, economy is just down the aisle," Claudia said, her smile tight as she pointed toward the back of the plane. Zara blinked, surprised. "This pass says first class," she replied, holding it up. "There must have been a mistake," Claudia insisted, her polite tone carrying an undeniable edge of dismissal. Passengers behind them began to stir impatiently. "There's no mistake," Zara said, her voice calm but firm. "This is my seat." Refusing to be dismissed, Zara stepped onto the plane and found her assigned seat in the immaculate first-class cabin. She stowed her carry-on and settled by the window, the quiet ambiance a welcome relief. Moments later, Claudia appeared, her heels clicking sharply on the floor. She stopped at Zara's row. "Excuse me, young lady," Claudia began, her voice firm. "First class is reserved for paying passengers." Zara met her gaze, momentarily stunned. "I am a first-class passenger," she replied softly, extending her ticket. "Here is my pass." Claudia didn't take it. Instead, she crossed her arms. "I don't think so. There must be some confusion. You don't belong here." The words hung in the air, a cold slap of judgment. Around them, whispers began to ripple through the cabin as boarding passengers noticed the confrontation. "This is my ticket," Zara repeated, her hands trembling slightly. "My father bought it for me." "Your father?" Claudia scoffed lightly. "And where is he?" "He's waiting for me at our destination." "I'm going to have to verify this," Claudia said curtly, walking away. Zara sat frozen, the weight of a dozen pairs of eyes pressing down on her. The humiliation was a knot tightening in her chest. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "Carry yourself with dignity, even when others don't." She blinked back the tears that pricked at her eyes, taking a deep, steadying breath. Claudia returned, her voice now louder than necessary. "I need to ask you to move to the economy section. This seat has been assigned to someone else." "But this is my seat," Zara protested. "How can it be assigned to someone else?" Claudia's polite mask slipped entirely. "If you don't comply, I'll have to call security." The standoff had reached its peak. Murmurs spread through the cabin. "Looks like someone's trying their luck," a businessman whispered. Across the aisle, an older woman frowned. "This doesn't seem right," she murmured. Unwilling to back down, Claudia made the call. Two security officers soon boarded, their presence amplifying the tension. Zara calmly explained the situation, presenting her valid boarding pass, but Claudia's narrative had already taken hold. The officers deferred to her authority. "Ma'am," one of them said, his voice low but firm, "we've been asked to escort you to another seat." Despite her protests, Zara was led down the aisle to economy, the whispers and stares of the other passengers following her like a shadow. Her composure was a shield, but the humiliation was a wound she could feel deepening with every step. Back in first class, Claudia moved through the cabin with an air of triumph. "That's how you handle troublemakers," she remarked to a colleague loud enough for others to hear. "First class is for people who belong here." Seated in her new, cramped seat, Zara pulled out her phone. Her fingers hovered over the screen as she typed a message to her father. "Dad, they moved me to economy. The flight attendant said my ticket was a mistake." His reply was almost instant. "Stay calm. I'll handle it." His words were a comfort. For now, she would wait. A short while later, as she stood waiting for the lavatory, an older woman from first class approached her. Her eyes were filled with concern. "I saw what happened," the woman said softly. "That wasn't right. You're handling this with such grace." Zara managed a small, grateful smile. "Thank you. I'll be okay." The kindness was a small balm on a fresh wound. Back in her seat, Zara tried to distract herself by gazing out at the clouds. After a while, she pressed the call button, hoping for a simple glass of water. Minutes stretched into 10. She watched other flight attendants serving passengers, but no one came to her. Finally, she saw Claudia approaching. "Yes?" Claudia asked, her tone sharp. "Could I have a glass of water, please?" Zara requested politely. Claudia offered a thin, insincere smile. "Sure," she clipped before turning on her heel. Zara watched as Claudia returned to first class, where she meticulously served drinks, laughed with passengers, and pointedly ignored the economy cabin. The deliberate neglect was clear. Zara pressed the call button again. When Claudia finally returned, her expression was laced with annoyance. "Yes?" she repeated. "I requested water earlier," Zara said, her voice steady despite her building frustration. Claudia's tight-lipped smile returned. "I'll get to it," she said with dripping indifference, and disappeared once more, leaving Zara alone with the quiet, searing injustice of it all. The veneer of Zara's composure began to splinter. This wasn't simple rudeness. It was a deliberate, targeted hostility, and she could no longer ignore it. A sting of humiliation settled deep in her chest as her eyes scanned the faces of the other first-class passengers. Did no one else see what was happening? Were they choosing to ignore it? Or was she truly as alone as she felt? Her gaze fell to her phone, the screen still bright with her father's last message. "Stay calm. I'll handle it. Let me know if anything else happens." With a quiet urgency, her fingers flew across the screen. "Dad, the flight attendant is targeting me. She's deliberately ignoring my requests and making me feel unwelcome. It's becoming unbearable." She stared at the words for a heartbeat, then pressed send. The action brought a strange mix of relief and frustration. Her father's reply was almost instantaneous, as always. "Stay where you are. I'm making the call now." The message was brief, but its weight was immense. Zara knew her father. When he said he was making a call, he meant business. Taking a deep breath, she tried to steady her racing heart. The silence of the other passengers felt almost as isolating as the flight attendant's disdain. A few sympathetic glances were shot her way, but no one spoke up. Their inaction was a quiet confirmation of her solitude. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft movement. A young girl from a few rows back in economy had approached her seat. Her expression was kind, laced with a quiet determination. She leaned in, her voice a low, firm whisper. "Don't take it personally. That one, she's cruel to any black person who sits up front. She acts like we couldn't possibly belong here. It's wrong, and she shouldn't get away with it. I hope she gets what she deserves." Zara blinked, the girl's unexpected sincerity chipping away at her carefully held composure. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice steady but thick with emotion. "I think she will be, and very soon." She offered a small, grateful smile. "Thank you for speaking up. It means a lot." The girl nodded, and as she returned to her seat, she left Zara with a flicker of warmth in the cold, tense cabin. Now, all Zara could do was wait. High above the clouds, the calm hum of the cockpit was broken by the ring of the secure line. The captain, a veteran pilot, answered with practiced ease. His expression was neutral as his eyes scanned the instruments, but it sharpened as he listened to the voice on the other end. His posture straightened, his brow furrowed. The voice belonged to Victor Bennett, the owner of the airline. His tone was measured, but the authority behind it was unmistakable. The instructions were clear, concise, and left no room for error. "Yes, sir," the captain responded, his own voice now carrying a new weight. "Understood." The call lasted less than a minute, but its impact was immediate. Hanging up the receiver, the captain exhaled slowly. A mid-flight call from Victor Bennett wasn't an inquiry, it was an intervention. He activated the intercom and summoned the head flight attendant. Claudia Harper was in the middle of a boastful story when she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned, startled, to find the captain standing behind her. His face was a mask of professional gravity. "Miss Harper," he said, his tone firm but controlled, "I need a word with you." Claudia's annoyance quickly soured into apprehension. "Of course," she said, her voice crisp. "What is it?" "I've just received a call from Mr. Victor Bennett." The captain paused, letting the name sink in. Claudia's confidence wavered. "Victor Bennett?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, the owner of the airline," the captain confirmed. "He's been informed of an incident on this flight, an incident involving his daughter." At the mention of Zara, the blood drained from Claudia's face. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity, and the realization hit her like a wave of ice water. The captain's voice was final. "Mr. Bennett will be meeting this aircraft upon landing. He expects a full explanation. Until then, his instructions are that you will extend every possible courtesy to his daughter." Claudia stood frozen, her mind racing. I didn't realize," she stammered, her usual sharpness gone. "That's irrelevant," the captain said, his expression unchanging. "What matters is how a passenger was treated." He turned and walked back toward the cockpit, leaving Claudia rooted to the spot. The confidence she had worn like armor all flight had crumbled to dust. "I'm sure it's nothing," she muttered to herself, but the words were hollow, a desperate lie in the face of a terrifying truth. For the rest of the flight, Claudia was a shadow of her former self. Her brisk, purposeful stride became a hesitant shuffle. The smug remarks vanished, replaced by a tense, unnerving silence. Her colleagues exchanged confused glances, and passengers who had witnessed her earlier behavior whispered among themselves. Claudia's distraction began to bleed into her work. She fumbled with trays, forgot orders, and misread requests. She glanced toward Zara, who sat composed, scrolling through her phone with a faint, knowing smile. The sight tightened a knot in Claudia's stomach. Swallowing her pride, she made her way to Zara's seat, her heart pounding. "Miss Bennett," she began, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "Can I get you anything? A drink? A hot towel?" Zara looked up, her eyes sharp. "No, thank you," she replied, her tone polite but distant. Over the next hour, Claudia returned again and again, offering extra blankets, premium snacks, a meal upgrade, anything she could think of. Each time, Zara declined with the same unwavering politeness. The other passengers watched, fascinated by the bizarre spectacle. Finally, Claudia approached empty-handed, crouching to meet Zara's eye level. "Miss Bennett," she began, her voice trembling. "I am so sorry for earlier. It was a complete misunderstanding on my part. I didn't realize—" She trailed off, unable to finish without further incriminating herself. "I hope we can just put this behind us." Zara studied her for a long moment. "The matter," she said with measured calm, "is no longer in my hands." "What do you mean?" Claudia asked, confused. "My father is handling it now," Zara stated. "He's the one who will decide if you're forgiven." The words hung in the air, absolute and non-negotiable. For the first time, Claudia truly understood. The consequences were no longer hers to manage. They were hers to receive. She retreated to the galley, the silent judgment of the cabin following her every step. Zara turned her gaze to the window, a faint smile on her lips. The balance of power had shifted. As the plane taxied to the gate, a sleek black SUV pulled up beside the aircraft. The door opened and Victor Bennett emerged, flanked by two senior executives. His presence was commanding, his expression serious. When he boarded the plane, a hush fell over the cabin. He walked straight to Zara, his face softening as he knelt beside her. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice warm with concern. "I'm okay now, Dad," she replied, a flicker of relief in her eyes. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's over." Straightening up, the warmth vanished from his expression, replaced by a cool authority. He turned his attention to Claudia, who stood frozen near the galley. "Miss Harper," Victor began, his voice even and measured, "I understand there was an issue regarding my daughter's flight experience." Claudia's composure shattered. "I didn't know she was your daughter, sir," she stammered. "It was a misunderstanding." Victor's gaze was unflinching. "The issue isn't whether you knew she was my daughter. The issue is how you treated a passenger, and likely how you treat others who don't fit your assumptions. This airline was built on the principle of treating every single person with dignity and respect. Your actions today failed that principle." A ripple of applause started in the back, swelling into a wave that washed over the cabin. Claudia looked mortified, her face burning with humiliation. "Effective immediately," Victor announced, turning to his executives. "Miss Harper is removed from duty pending a full investigation. Her behavior does not meet the standards of this airline." As Claudia was escorted off the plane, she risked one last glance at Zara, who met her gaze with a calm, steady expression. There was no malice there, only the quiet certainty that justice had been served. In the weeks that followed, the incident became a catalyst for change. Victor Bennett spearheaded a complete overhaul of staff training, implementing mandatory workshops on diversity, inclusion, and respect, ensuring that no passenger would ever endure what Zara had. Meanwhile, Claudia Harper was dismissed. After weeks of reflection, the anger and embarrassment she initially felt gave way to a profound sense of shame. She finally understood that her behavior was not just unprofessional, but deeply wrong. One evening, she sat down and composed a long, heartfelt email to the airline. She apologized not only for her actions toward Zara, but for the mindset that had allowed them. "I can't undo the harm I caused," she wrote, "but I am committed to learning from this. If given the chance, I would like to prove that I have changed." Victor read the email and, after discussing it with his team, saw a flicker of genuine remorse. They decided to offer her a second chance, under strict probationary terms, a chance to prove that true change was not only necessary, but possible. Claudia was permitted to return to work, but under the strictest of conditions. A shadow of scrutiny would follow her every move, with the understanding that any further unprofessionalism would result in immediate dismissal. She came back to the airline a different woman, humbled, quiet, yet with a new resolve in her eyes. In the mandatory training sessions, she became an unexpected voice, often volunteering to share her story. She spoke of her own deeply ingrained biases, her voice raw with the shame of her actions, and detailed the painful but necessary process of unlearning them. Slowly, the frost from her colleagues began to thaw. They saw not the dismissive woman from before, but someone who now made it her personal mission to ensure every passenger felt seen and valued. Meanwhile, Victor Bennett chose to face the storm head-on. Standing before a bank of cameras and microphones, his demeanor was not one of anger, but of profound conviction. "Inclusion is not an option. It is our fundamental responsibility," he stated, his voice cutting through the silent room. "Privilege, whether it's the privilege to wear a uniform or to sit in a first-class seat, comes with the duty to treat one another with dignity. No one should ever be made to feel unwelcome because of who they are." His words were more than a press statement. They were a declaration. They ignited a firestorm online, a global conversation that transcended headlines. People from all walks of life began sharing their own stories of discrimination, using the incident as a catalyst for a much larger dialogue about accountability and respect. For Zara, the public fallout was a distant echo to the profound internal shift she was experiencing. The ordeal had become a crucible, forging a new kind of strength within her. She understood now what her father had always tried to teach her, that dignity was not something to be requested, but a truth to be inhabited. The incident, though born of pain, had armed her with a resilient spirit and a clear-eyed understanding of her own worth. She watched the ripple effects, the new training programs, the worldwide conversations, even the news of Claudia's earnest efforts to change, and saw proof that a single voice, refusing to be silenced, could indeed move the world. Weeks later, they were in the air again. As Zara settled into her first-class seat beside her father, she watched the cabin crew. There was an effortless grace to their movements, a genuine warmth in their interactions. They served not just with professionalism, but with an open-hearted respect that filled the cabin with a sense of ease. When a flight attendant offered her a drink, her smile was authentic, her eyes kind. Zara smiled back, a true, unburdened smile. She caught her father's eye and they shared a silent, knowing glance. The contrast with their last flight was a palpable relief, but the change ran deeper than that. It was within her. A quiet confidence had taken root where uncertainty once lived. Leaning her head back against the seat, Zara closed her eyes, feeling the gentle hum of the engines. She was stronger now, more certain of her place in the world. And she knew, with a deep and peaceful satisfaction, that some battles were not just worth fighting, but were essential for the journey forward.